Hello, and welcome to the WebEx for the New Laws Association of Football 2016-17 season. This is a briefing for the leagues and the club. I'm Jodie Jordan, the governance manager, and I'm joined by Kevin Small, the referee development officer, who will be going through the rule changes with you.
Good evening, Jodie. So, what is the law changes and why is it taking place? First of all, just to deal with one myth, the laws aren't actually dealt with by FIFA. They're dealt with by the International Football Association Board. That's made up of the four country FAs, that's the Football Association, the Welsh FA, the Scottish FA, and the Northern Ireland FA. Plus four of the representatives from the world of football. And it's that body that deals with the law changes each season. So why has there been a fundamental change? The argument was to make it easier for everyone to be involved in football and to read and understand the laws. Some years ago, the word obstruction was removed from the laws because of its difficulty of interpreting the word in other languages, and it's now called impeding. And it was an opportunity to make other changes to the laws to reflect other things like that. It's also there to ensure the laws are appropriate to the 21st century. We'll see in our presentation later on some of the differences in how the law has changed, but in reality, things we would expected the referee to give in games which were taken place last season. Also to ensure that the laws are consistent and promote fair play. And there's also an opportunity to reduce the law, but the law will be split into two parts. It would be interpretation of the laws and the laws. Now everything has been put into one part and 10,000 words have been removed. So I would actually say that the law book is just as big as it was last season and the print seems the same size. We're going to start with Law 5, which is all about the referee. But the important part of this is that it actually says what the referee should do and the role of the referee. And it's quite clear the decisions will be made to the best of the referee's ability according to the laws of the game and the spirit of the game, and will be based on the opinion of the referee who has the discretion to take appropriate action within the framework of the laws of the game. That sounds a lot of gobbledygook in some respects, but what it's basically saying is the rest will try to do their best to interpret the laws and at the same time do it to their best of their ability. You will not always get it right, and sometimes you will disagree with us, but at the same time, remember that we're only human. We're going to move on to the start and restart of play. Now, everyone would have seen on the European Championships, the ball can now be kicked in any direction at kickoff. But one thing is still the same, and that is players must still be in their own half when they take the kick. So therefore, unless you're going to have a ball which is passed, is kicked backwards, and we say backheeled, it can be very difficult for players to actually kick the ball backwards unless they're in the other opponent's half. So sometimes there will be very little change to this actually in practice. Another change to the law is the fact of whether the ball is clearly moved. There has been confusion in the past when sometimes a player's gone down to the corner, tapped the ball slightly, it's already just sort of vibrated and just moved slightly and he's run off. Another player's come down to the corner to take, some people think to take the corner, and actually then dribbles the ball in because of the original player had already played the ball. Now it quite clearly says that the referee must interpret it that the ball has clearly moved. And the referee's view that the ball has not been clearly moved, then it's not in play. And this applies to all free kicks, penalty kicks, corner kicks, and goal kicks. Goal kicks and other free kicks within the penalty area. This is just to clear up, this isn't been a law change, but just a confusion. Many people don't realise that the ball must come out of the penalty area even for a defensive free kick. Just to remind them, for goal kicks or defensive free kicks inside the penalty area, if the ball is played before it leaves the penalty area, the kick must be retaken. Other things on goal kicks is that if an opposing player is in the penalty area when the goal kick is taken, the player can't touch or challenge the ball until it is played by another player outside the penalty area. If he does, then the goal kick is retaken if this occurs. We all know that actually players should be outside, attacking players should be outside the penalty area when the kick is taken. There's a change on the drop ball to make it more understandable. If after a drop ball a goal is scored without the ball touching at least two players, a goal kick or corner kick is awarded depending on who's allowed to touch the ball. It's important that we also note But under the law, there is no number given for these challenge for a drop ball. It can be none, or it can be all 22. The law also makes clear the captain's role. Now, we accept in some of the youth and minor football, the captain plays a minor role in the actual overall game. But as we move up to more senior football and adult football, then the captain has a responsibility to ensure a degree of behaviour for his teammates, though he's not given any specific responsibilities. So it doesn't give him the right to actually shout the ball at the referee, though he can speak to him in a nice manner, which we very much appreciate. Substitutes can restart provided the play, provided they have entered the field of play. This is a rewording. At the present time, what happens is that the player must enter the field and come over the white line, the touchline, to actually the field of play before they can be involved in play. So if there was a throw in next to where the player was coming on, he or she could not take that throw in until they entered the field of play. Same for a corner. Some minor changes are on kit. One of those is on undershorts and tights. They must be the same colours. We already know it must be the same colour as the shorts. But now what they have clarified is that also it can be the lowest trim, edge trim. Now on this particular photograph, the trim at the bottom is rather large. It could be less than half an inch in a different colour. So you can, in this case, you can either have black tights or undershorts or red undershorts. But every member of the team must have the same colour. So you can't have half the team in black and half the team in red. On socks, again, any material covering the socks, and that includes ankle guards as well, must be the same colour as the part of the sock that it covers. So in this case, if you want to use different coloured tape, you're going to need white tape and red tape to tape up your socks. My advice to teams would be try and use clear sellotape, as it would save all the hassle of having to buy the different coloured tapes. Well, players do have to go off for changes their equipment. Then they need to normally get the permission of the referee to re-enter, and actually for the referee to check that they've complied with the law. This has been changed now, so those who have neutral assistant referees in the games, now that assistant referee can actually do the check-in, and once the referee is signalled, that player can re-enter the field, hopefully making it quicker for the players to rejoin the game. Okay. Danger during a challenge for which an opponent receives a red or yellow card now doesn't automatically have to leave the field of play. However, the treatment of players on the field of play must be done quickly. If it is prolonged, then that player will be asked to leave to continue this treatment. At the more senior level of the game, this will be obviously what would happen now. But on the park football, we know sometimes players are treated and then asked to leave. What we are saying to the referees is how he should judge this is based on the time it takes him or her to caution a player or send a player off. Then, if the player still needs further treatment after that, then the player should leave the field of play. In the unlikelihood that a player will accidentally lose their boots, apologies, this is a poor photograph, as close as we could come to someone playing without a boot, then they are allowed to continue to play until the next play stops, and then that person must then reinstate their footwear. Mind you, I think I wouldn't want to put my bare feet into a tackle with studs flying left, right and centre. Moving on to throw-ins, again there's a change in the law of throw-ins to actually reinforce what a throw-in should be and how it should be taken. It's quite clear in the law that both hands need to be behind the ball and the ball cannot be thrown with one hand and the other guiding it. What we're trying to do is provide you with two examples to clearly indicate this. First example shows both hands behind the ball, the rear of the ball, and the ball can come back to the head, and that is a correct photograph. We'll see a second photograph that the player has only one hand behind the ball, and the second is almost throwing the ball. This is a one-handed throw and a throw. Also on throw is now we have an opponent who unfairly distracts or impedes a throw-in, including being closer than 2 meters or 6 feet. It's to be cautioned. So that's a new rule that's been brought in, that we now will caution players if they impede or obstruct a throw-in and are too close to the throw. Personally, if I was this particular player, I wouldn't want to be standing that close with a boot flying that all the way through, probably going to give me a mouthful. But this would be a cautionable offence, and the bullet would be cautioned for that, being too close to the throw-in. Another fundamental change is on free kicks. If you look at this particular photograph, you'll see that the ball is in play, but that and the red and white striped player have taken the blue end off the field of play. Last season, technically, that would not have been a free kick because the incident took place off the field of play. Many referees would have probably given the free kick, but in law this would not have been correct. This is now changed to allow to take these into consideration, and if such a challenge took place, then a direct free kick would be awarded on the boundary line nearest to where the offence took place. If the line is in the penalty area, then the penalty is awarded. So players go over the goal line, makes a challenge, and it would then be a penalty. The other incident we've looked at is possibility of, say, two players going off, one getting the ball, they run back on to rejoin play, and one of them pulls the other player back to get into the penalty area first. That would be a penalty kick. Another change to the laws is the goalkeeper moving early and causing the penalty to be taken. Now, we all know the goalkeeper can move up and down his line and should stay on the line before the penalty is taken. What we're now saying is that the keeper moves off his line and causes the penalty to be retaken, and that keeper will be given a yellow card. Example, I think, was the Croatia game during the European Championship, when the goalkeeper, it was all pink, saved the penalty. He was nearer at the penalty spot than the taker before the ball was kicked. The referee fortunately allowed the save to take place, but technically should have been cautioned and the penalty retaken. Other things on penalty kicks. An indirect free kick will be awarded if a penalty kick is kicked backwards or sideways. Just to give you the example on here, if you look at the so if the ball is played back, say to the whether it's blue teammates, then that would be an indirect free kick. If it was played sideways to this particular blue to play it in, again, that would be an indirect free kick. So I probably don't understand why you wouldn't want to take a direct free kick, direct penalty kick, because you've got a better chance of scoring. The other one to let you know is back heeling the ball is okay. And again, I don't understand why you want to back heel it and probably miss the chance of scoring a goal. Also on penalty kicks, we have now indirect free kicks will be awarded and a yellow card issued if a teammate of the identified kicker takes the kick. So this is quite simple. If number 10 has been identified as the kicker, and the referee has informed the keeper that number 10 is taking the kick, and then say the number 7 comes along and kicks the ball, the number 7 will be cautioned and an indirect free kick will be given to the defending team. The other is if the kicker fakes to kick the ball once he has completed the run-up. So faking during the run-up is permissible. So if the player stutters all the way up to the ball, that is permissible. But as soon as he or she moves their leg back to be in the movement to kick the ball, they must follow that movement through. They cannot stop then. That will be faking the kick, and it's an indirect free kick and a caution to the player. Penalty shootouts and changes on penalty shootout as well. At first, more effective to referees, but now referees no longer will decide which goal to select for the penalty shootout. This will be dealt with by a toss of the coin. However, we will take into consideration if you're a more senior ground, you'll find that the safety steward says it's more that you should do it at one end than the other, then the referee will decide that will happen. On some park footballs, like with Mannington Rec, on 1 or 2 pitches, you wouldn't pick one particular end because every penalty that missed, the ball would end up in the river. So therefore, there are obvious times when you're not going to select, but if there is an opportunity in equal value to both ends, then the referee will use a toss of the coin in front of the two captains. There will then be a second toss of the coin, which will take place between the captains to decide on who takes the penalty first. The winning captain decides whether or not they wish to go first or second. On the penalty shootouts, again, some changes. Teams no longer have to tell the referee the order in which players will take the kick. Once all players have taken a kick, they can change the order the second time round. If a player is not available when their turn comes, then they will forfeit their turn, and that will be considered to be a missed goal. So if you've got a player that's gone off for a quick relief and he's not back in time, then that player will miss their turn. What we have suggested to referees is that to ensure that there is no duplication of players taking a kick more than once in the first round, that they ask for the player's name when take their number when they actually take the kick. So we have a record of those who actually have taken the kick. Also on penalty shootouts, the penalty kick is over when the ball stops and goes out of play, or the referee stops play for any infringement. The kicker cannot kick the ball twice, so therefore the ball will still be in place. And this, for example, would be when you'll see the ball could possibly be coming off the post, hit the goalkeeper and go in. That would be a goal. The other changes on direct free kicks now is that if a foul involves contact with an opponent, it is a direct free kick. So if contact is made, it will always be a direct free kick, not an indirect free kick. Another part of the law changes is that many of you may be surprised to hear is that if you tackle a player in a careless, reckless, or with excessive force, that is actually a free kick. In the laws for some years now, what has been added to that is the word challenge. So it's tackles or challenges an opponent in a manner considered by the referee to be careless, reckless, or with excessive force, then there will be a direct free kick awarded. And I also warn you, if it's reckless, you will receive a yellow card as well, and if it's excessive force, a red card will be issued. Impeding, or in old-fashioned language, obstruction. A direct free kick will be awarded for impeding if an opponent is impeded and contact is made. If there's no contact made, then it will be traditionally, as it always has been, an indirect free kick. Another change to the law which was last season, would either have been a drop ball or an indirect free kick, are offences against the subs, team officials or match officials whilst the ball is in play. And that is now a direct free kick. So, for example, the manager comes on, I think he's actually congratulating him in the top photograph, not trying to throttle him, and interfere with play, then that would be a direct free kick. Or if the other player goes to challenge the referee and shoves him before we start after the caution or send them off with an indirect free kick, that will now become a direct free kick. Other direct free kick is if a sub or substituted player, team official or player has been sent off into the field of play and interferes with play, one opponent, a direct free kick or a penalty kick if it takes place in its own penalty area. I think sometimes you'll see, especially in park football, where a player maybe who's been sent off suddenly decides to come back onto the field at some point during the game, especially if it's a hotly disputed game and there's been another sort of melee of players. If he was the leading instigator in that and happened to be the penalty area and that's where play actually stopped, then that would be a penalty kick. Handball, there's a clarification on handball as well. What they're now saying is that, to make it clear, excuse me, is that not all handballs need to be punished by a yellow card. We do see a lot of our European colleagues, refereeing colleagues, who do consistently punish handball with yellow cards. What they're now saying is, they've made it clear within the law, is that the only yellow card should only be issued if it affects the outcome of an incident, e.g. stopping of a promising attack, trying to score a goal, or an unsuccessful attempt to stop a goal. A good example of this would be the France-Germany semi-final of the European Championship, when France had their penalty. The German player was judged to have handled the ball, and the referee cautioned him, There was no interference from the Promising Tap wasn't stopped. It was not trying to score a goal or attempt to stop a goal. And realistically, there should not have been a caution for that particular offence. Moving on to goal scoring opportunities, or DOGSO, denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. That's referee speak, so we will be referring to it as DOGSO for this section of the presentation. If a player commits a DOGSO inside the penalty area whilst attempting to play the ball or challenging an opponent with the ball, a yellow card is to be given. The reason for this change is that the FA, also we said the International FA Board, wanted to do away with the double punishment. The actual giving of a penalty, in many people's opinions, was a reinstatement of that goal scoring opportunity. So therefore, a yellow card and the penalty kick was a more appropriate punishment where a player genuinely attempting to challenge a player or for the ball as part of the game. However, if a player commits a DOGSO by handling the ball, holding, pushing or pulling an opponent, not attempting to play the ball, not having a chance to play the ball, or commit serious foul play or violent conduct, then these players will be given a red card and sent off. And that is not a picture of me. Committing a DOGSO outside the penalty area is still a red card offence. When making this call, the referee needs to consider the following options. Distance between the offence and the goal, general direction of the play, likelihood of keeping or regaining control of the ball, location and the number of defenders. For example, on the distance between the offence and the goal, when goal scoring opportunities became a sending off offence many years back, a player that committed an offence on the halfway line and was the last defender would be sent off. In recent years, the advice has been given that that should not happen because of the proximity of the offence to the goal, otherwise there's half the field still to be covered, and the likelihood is that the defender may make it back to stop the individual having a goal scoring opportunity. Again, referees at park football will have to judge individuals' abilities against those of the top flight, expecting a particular player who plays park football to be able to put a ball away, which you'd expect some top professional players to do, doesn't mean therefore sometimes a goal scoring opportunity. What we've done in this diagram is try to give you an idea of what the areas where we're looking for referees to make decisions. This isn't an accurate description, but just to give you a guide. And what we're saying is a challenge on the ball, a legitimate challenge for the ball within the penalty area, and that will be given a yellow card if the player is fouled. However, outside the penalty area, any challenge which is not a legitimate challenge, any challenge, whether it be for the ball or it's handball or whatever, then that will be a sending off. And the zone we're looking at is that basically people going in at an angle this way towards goal, going straight towards goal again this way. And you may get the player coming down this part of the field who gets tripped, the defender is the last player, and there's no one in this part of the penalty area. It's quite easy to be able to go get an angle to have that shot on goal before any other defender gets near him, and that would still be a sending off. What we're trying to say is if players heading this way, these directions, then they're not heading towards goal. If they're moving towards the corner flags, they're not moving towards goal, and therefore it would not be a DOGSO. Again, in the penalty area, this could be a sending off, not just yellow to each other. And what we're also saying is, James, about what I said about the halfway line, we've got players in this part of the field of play, probably just over the halfway line, that would not be considered to be goal scoring opportunities. When does the referee's power start to send the player off? Well, it starts as soon as we start our pitch inspection. So as soon as the referee arrives, carries out his or her pitch inspection, then they have the opportunity, if they wish to enforce the laws and make sure that if a player that commits an offence needs to be sent off, then he or she will be sent off before the game. Red and yellow cards, however, are not issued until the referee enters the field of play at the start of the game. They can be issued at half time and up to the final whistle. On sending off, we have attempted violent conduct is a red card. So just to clarify, if you attempt to hit a player but you miss, you attempt to headbutt a player, you attempt to kick a player but you miss, they are all sending off offence. So it's spitting, just to clarify. So if you spit or attempt into a player, or you spit and you miss purely by you not being very good at it, then that is still a sending off offence. The player strikes an opponent on the head or face when not challenging the ball will be given a red card. Nothing changes in this. What has changed is the word unless the force used was minimal or negligible. Very often nowadays we see players maybe raise their hands and automatically you hear the commentator say he's raised his hands, he's got to send him off. When actually that player has done nothing in the sense of striking or hitting that player, and therefore hasn't really committed violent conduct. So therefore, if you raise your hands and you attempt to strike or strike a player, you will be sent off. If you raise your hands towards a player and you do not do it with force, or is interpreted as being just moving your hands up towards the face, then you will not be sent off. There will be that, again, I want to emphasise, this is an interpretation of the referee. Their view of the incident may be different from yours, and they will see something which says to them, this is violent conduct, and I'm sending that player off. They might take a similar, different view, where they feel that the player hasn't done anything wrong, when you, maybe on the touchline, will say, that was a definite punch and he should have been sent off. That will never change. It's all about angles and views. Moving on to offside. The halfway line is neutral. Players must be in the opponent's half, just to clarify that. However, this particular player would be offside. If he's in an offside position, if you look, because the vast majority of his body and one of his legs is in the opponent's half, only one leg is on the line or over in his own half. Therefore, that would still be offside. A player's arms are not considered to be used when judging offside. So if you looked at the white player, if that white was the attacking player, you can see that a good half of his body, body torso, is offside, clearly closer to the goal line than anybody else, and therefore you judged offside. If, for example, this red was the attacking player, only his arm is actually in an offside position and therefore would not be judged to be offside. Another change we've got on the offside is, and I think this is probably going to cause the most confusion this season, is offsides about where the free kick will be taken from. So if you look at this example here, where you've got the red defender plays the ball upfield, and this red here is adjudged to be offside. So the assistant referee says, yes, that player's offside, then wait to see if he becomes active. The defender's not a very good player, plays the ball and only gets to where you see it on the screen. So the red attacker decides to go back to his own half to collect the ball. At that moment, the assistant referee would flag for an offside. Last season, the free kick would be taken where the red was first offside. This season, it will now be taken where the ball is. So therefore, the assistant would move to the halfway line, flag for the offside, and indicate to the referee the position of the kick. So therefore, you will find you could end up having free kicks for offside in your own half. That's one of the changes this year in the law. Another change is on rebounds of the players and of the woodwork. So we take this example where the red has taken a shot, keeper saved it, it's gone to the blue defender, and the reds come in, it was in the offside position, and challenged the blue for the ball, or actually got the ball, either way, and then the assistant would then flag for offside. Originally, the first shot, if that had gone in the net, then that would have been a goal, irrespective of his player being in an offside position. But he only becomes active because he then challenges or plays the ball. The defender leaves the field of play over the goal line and stays off is considered beyond the goal line until the play stops, when his team play the ball forward. So in this case, we have again the red will play the ball forward, and what the blue has done is it's gone off the field of play to try and make sure get this red offside. However, under the law, the blue is deemed to be on the goal line and therefore still on the field of play, and that the red is onside, and the assistant referee will keep his flag down. Again, for attackers, slightly different. And again, if the ball is played forward, what the red has done on this occasion is he's left the field of play because to make himself inactive, and therefore the ball is played forward. He's given him to making sure he's inactive. The assistant referee can see that that's what he's done. His intention is not to play the ball, allowing this red to go forward to actually receive the ball from an onside position. However, if after the ball has been played, the red decides to come back onto the field of play, collect the ball because he feels that the red, he thinks he's now got away with it, then he's made himself active again. He has interfered with play, actually challenged taking the ball, and the assistant referee will flag for the offside. I would advise everyone that a player who deliberately leaves the field of play and re-enters without the referee's permission, under law, will be cautioned. On outside interferences, just again a slight change to the law on this one. A team official, substitute or sent off player that interferes with play, players who started with a direct free kick or a penalty kick, depending whether that interference took place. Again, if it's on the goal line or in the penalty area, then that will be a penalty rather than just a direct. Outside agent is everything else. If you're not a player, for instance, not on the team sheet, and you consider an outside agent, so play will be start as traditionally with a drop ball. I would advise you rather to let someone else get the drop ball rather than carrying him. Is there any questions?
If anybody has any questions at all, then please raise your hand now. Any questions for us?
Hopefully, you've all found that very interesting. So thank you very much for listening. And on behalf of Jodie and myself, we wish you all a very successful season. Thank you.
Thank you.